Alright, so had the HL Max AliBaba BEADLOCKS specials on for 5-10,000 Ks, something like that now. A couple of people asking me what I think about them, so we'll do a quick review and yeah, let's get into it. Probably the biggest thing with these beadlocks is not how they go off-road, it's not how they go on-road, it's price. So when I bought these, I paid 280 bucks a rim. I only bought 4 because I didn't have money at the time. But speaking to a fella the other day, he said they've gone up to 320 a rim, which is a fair bit of money. I know Hackett's was saying to me they'd be looking at like 80 bucks a rim to fit these because they take like 40 minutes a rim to fit, or 40 minutes to fit tight to the rim. You can do them at home, they're relatively easy, so that might be a way you can save a bit of money. So at 320 a rim, I think they're starting to get a bit up there. Some of like the brand names, like ProComps, Dirty Lice, that sort of thing, they are like 550 a rim, which it's still like almost double the price, but I guess you're probably looking for more aftermarket support. Like as you've probably seen, these got a fair bit of rock rash on them. I got a fair bit of rock rash on my bull bar, so that doesn't really bother me, but if that's something you're concerned about, I don't think Yeely is bringing in a container of lock rims to replace them when they get smashed on rocks. If that's something that bothers you, keep in mind. But yeah, I mean, for the price, you can't complain too much. The next one is OnRoads. Beadlocks in general are not legal for on-road. They're sold for off-road use only. I think that's due to the fact that like these bolts, there's 26 of them, if I remember correctly. If enough of them come loose, you will lose a tire on the bead. Like that's all that holds the tire on. So if they come loose and the ring gaps open or whatever, the tire can blow off the bead. And if you're doing 100, that's pretty bad. But patrols are notorious for snapping off the front left wheel and sending that down the road. So yeah, but I mean, if you're running 35s, they're not legal anyway. So you might as well put them on beadlocks. In saying that, I check my bolts pretty regularly because I'm a wanker and I like torque wrenches and they make a click noise and it's cool. But it's very rare that any of them come loose after, like, you have to bed them in for like the first 1,000 Ks, pretty much check them after every drive. That's kind of a pain in the ass. You spend a lot of time tightening bolts, which is pretty boring. In saying that, they are awesome on the highway. I have no vibrations, no death wobbles or anything like that. There's no ring to clip on, so you can't throw on like your normal wheel weights. So if you are going to fit them at home, have a look into getting balance beads. That's what's in mine now, and what probably should be in most regularly aired down tires. It kind of looks like washing powder sort of stuff, like Omo. And that has kept the balance awesome. It's one finger, well, aside from the fact that it pulls left, it's one finger on the highway. It's sweet as. I've rotated them a couple of times, no issues there. That is also down to putting on good quality tires as well. A lot of the cheaper imported tires can have issues with the actual tire themselves being not great, as well as, like, so if you are going to use them on road, spend the money on good tires, Maxxis, Toyo, Nitto, whatever. Just don't put cheap tires on them, was what I was told. After you're happy with them, if you're happy to take the risk running them on road, I guess the next biggest sort of question is, how do they go off-road? I am pretty rough on my gear, and I've only had them aired down probably 5 or 6 times. All of those times have been between 5 and 10 psi. I probably wouldn't run lower than 5 psi because you can damage the rim as well if you hit things hard enough, but that just comes down to the fact that I like how it sounds when I'm up it, so I tend to hit shit really hard. If you are going to run super low pressures, regardless of the brand methods or whatever, you do need to keep in mind that the tyre acts as a shock absorber for the rim when you're hitting rocks really hard. If you're driving slow, then it's not a problem. Like if you have self-control, wouldn't worry about it. But if you do hit shit hard, that is something to think about if you go really low. In saying that, at 8 psi, which is about what I normally go down to, in Mexico I did heaps of donuts and the rears were fine. You have unreal grip at that low pressure over like rocks, that sort of thing. You are a lot less likely to spin your wheels and shred tires, which is also pretty cool. So I haven't had any bolts snap. I know there's a couple other guys running them who have had a heap of bolts snap. I would say that's down to quality control not being there. Whether or not there was a fault in a specific run of bolts or something, I don't know. The other thing, they're not that old. I mean, you guys saw when I got them fitted, and all of the coating on the bolts has started to come off, and I'm starting to see them go a little rusty around the edges, and the faces aren't great. Because of that, that's something I'm going to be looking at replacing them preventatively. If you are going to replace them, I would look at going to like a proper fasteners shop, like a Bolts and Industrial or whoever's local to you. When I priced it up at Bunnings, it was going to be like $320 for bolts, and then when I went down to my local bolt shop, it was going to be 90 bucks. So I haven't lost a tire off the bead. Like I said, I've done a heap of skids with them on real soft sand, on loose gravel. Like I've done reasonably high-ish sort of speeds. I mean, speeds that are scary enough in a GQ Patrol with questionable brakes. So they've overall just been performing pretty well off-road. You can really tell the difference between 20 psi and 8 psi. It's massive. So. Alright, so for an overall final review rundown, I guess, of the AliBaba BEADLOCKS is at 320 bucks. They're starting to get up there. I mean, you do have to buy new bolts. There's another 100 bucks. 100 bucks will do all 4, but that's still starting to get up there, especially when you think, you know, Dirty Lifes, Pro Comps, they are more expensive, but you do have all of the aftermarket support there with them where you don't get with these. But in saying that, they're still, you know, 700 bucks cheaper in the set, which is a lot of money. I haven't had any problems with them. I've never had a bolt snap. I very rarely ever have to tighten bolts or anything like that. They're awesome on the highway. They're fantastic off-road. I probably would buy another set at 300 bucks a corner. I'll be buying a 5th eventually. Yeah, up again, and I probably wouldn't be recommending them, like up in price again, and I wouldn't be recommending them because that's really starting to push for things you need to replace stuff on straight away as opposed to just going for a brand name wheel. Overall, they're a pretty solid rim. I wouldn't hesitate to recommend them as long as you're happy to run the risks of the fact that they're not legal, the fact that you do have to spend some time tightening bolts. You will probably end up replacing them, otherwise the heads of your bolts will go all rusty and they'll look rubbish. But overall, I mean, no complaints. They're great. They're awesome off-road. You let them down to 8 psi and you can crawl over most things. I think with a set of lockers that would make most cars pretty unstoppable. So big thumbs up for me, as long as you understand the risks that come along with them.